I asked Mark to read from Luke chapter 20 because in that passage Jesus tells us that our life in the hereafter will be very different than our life here below. And ladies and gentlemen, that is because we live in a broken world. Perhaps we've been impressed with that fact in a very intense kind of way in the last 2 or 3 months because of the COVID-19 virus. I want to share with you some excerpts from a short article that Brother Gary Henry wrote some time ago entitled Our Broken World. I'm going to try to read this slowly so Nikki can not get lost. She does such a good job, and I appreciate that so much. Brother Henry writes, because of the damage sin has done to this world, our hearts will never find what they truly need here. This world is simply not what it was created to be. And to live in it is to hurt deeply. He goes on to say, it is foolish to underestimate the brokenness of this world. The more truly wise we become, the more we see the utter wretchedness of our earthly condition. The wise man, who has come to see that this world is tragically and irretrievably broken, will tend to be a man of sorrows. The unwelcome truth is this: we cannot have anything more than partial happiness as long as we live here. Our deepest needs cannot and will not be fully met in this life. What Brother Henry is telling us is that ultimately the solution of our problems as human beings will be found there, not here. We live in a broken world. But thankfully, our life there will be so much different and so much better than our life here. And so I've decided to talk with you this morning about some things you'll never do in heaven. And we're going to look at about a dozen things. No doubt there are many other things that we could talk about. And I think we can do this in a fairly timely manner. But may I suggest to you, first of all, this morning, that you'll never go to the medicine cabinet in your life there. Here we do that kind of thing all the time. Here we deal with headaches and arthritis and high blood pressure and low blood pressure and neuropathy and neuralgia and angina and diabetes. I just got a call from my friend Jim Deason this morning to tell me that Brother D. Bowman fell and broke his hip and is in surgery right now. Perhaps you recognize that name. I think we all understand that some folks take a handful of pills, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. They'll spend hundreds of dollars on prescription medications every month. Some people live in constant pain. Kathy and I had supper with Brother Alan Jones and his wife Jill earlier this week. And Alan is someone who just lives with constant pain. But brothers and sisters, there's not going to be any drugstores in heaven. You'll never go to the medicine cabinet. Listen to the words of John in Revelation chapter 21 and verse 4 when he says, "And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away." We sing about this kind of thing in our hymns. In the hymn, "No Night There," in the chorus we sing, "God shall wipe away all tears. There's no death, no pain, nor fears, and they count not time by years, for there is no night there." And then, folks, you'll never attend a funeral. There will be no hillsides dotted with the markers of loved ones across Jordan. You'll not find the silent city of the dead in heaven, for no one dies there. Again, in the passage that we just read, John says, "There shall be no death, nor sorrow, nor crying." Have you thought about the fact that you'll never turn on a light switch there? That's one of the first things we do when we stumble to the bathroom before the sun comes up in the morning. But there, not here, but there will be no darkness. In Revelation chapter 22 and verse 5, John says, "There shall be no night there. They need no lamp nor light of the sun, for the Lord God gives them light, and they shall reign forever and ever." In that life there will be no street lamps, no night lights, no candles, no light switches. And we sing about that in our hymns as well. "In the land of fadeless day lies the city four square. It shall never pass away, and there is no night there." O'er all those wide extended plains shines one eternal day. There God the Son forever reigns and scatters night away. No night is there, no sorrow, no death and no decay, no yesterday, no morrow, but one eternal day. You're never going to go to the refrigerator in the middle of the night there, because you're just never going to get hungry. John writes in Revelation chapter 7, beginning in verse 15, "Therefore they are before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. They shall neither hunger any more, nor thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any heat. For the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to living fountains of water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes." I don't know if that means I'm going to miss my Diet Mountain Dew or not. Something else that you'll never do in heaven, you'll never face temptation. We face temptation all the time, multiple times a day, do we not? Men have to fight against the temptation to lust because immodestly clad women are all around us. And we have to fight the temptation on the job against uncontrolled anger because there's that fellow sitting next to us who just loves to push our buttons, right? We fight against the temptation to lie, to save face, or to be polite, or for whatever reason. Brothers and sisters, we'll never face temptation there. We face it here because Satan is trying to do everything that he can do to destroy our souls. Peter tells us in 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8 that Satan walks around as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And that's why it's so important, as Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 6, that we take up the whole armor of God. Paul says that we need to do that. We must, in fact, do that so that we can withstand in the evil day. And he says, having done all to stand, stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth. We've got to put on the girdle of truth. Having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, above all, taking the shield of faith with which you'll be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And he says, take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. And then I think Paul talks about our secret weapon when he says in verse 18, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. Aren't there times here in this life when we wish that we could lay our armor aside and just rest from the battle of faith? I think the psalmist spoke for all of us, at least at certain times in our life, when he wrote in Psalm 55, beginning in verse 3, because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked, for they bring down trouble upon me, and in wrath they hate me. My heart is severely pained within me. And the terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling have come upon me, and horror has overwhelmed me. So I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove, I would fly away and be at rest. Don't we all feel that way sometimes? Aren't there times in our lives when we just wish that we could stop the world and get off and rest for a while, regain our strength, and then get back on? Brothers and sisters, that day is coming. In the land where we're staking our claim, the devil has no passport. In fact, he's been or will be cast down into the lake of fire, and all of his helpers with him. In Revelation chapter 21 and verse 27, John says, but there shall by no means enter it anything that defiles or causes an abomination or a lie, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. And then, folks, you'll never face mistreatment there. In this life, if I can borrow the words of Shakespeare, we have to endure the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. We have to put up with the wicked ways of wicked people who say things and do things to hurt us and harm us. I was the kid that was picked on in high school. I know about mistreatment. I know how that feels. But folks, we'll never have to face that in the land beyond the sunset. We'll never have to face the mistreatment of wicked people. But you know, sometimes we have to endure the thoughtlessness and the carelessness even of those who love us. Husbands, are you ever thoughtless or careless in your treatment of your wives? Nobody else has raised you cowards. Sometimes we have to face or endure mistreatment even from people that love us, and we know they love us. But in that land beyond the sunset, none of that's going to happen. There's not going to be any wicked people there to mistreat us. John writes in Revelation chapter 22, verses 14 and 15, "Blessed are those who do His commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter through the gates into the city." The righteous folks are going to be inside. But then John says, "But outside are dogs and sorcerers and sexually immoral and murderers and idolaters and whoever loves and practices a lie." The good people are going to be inside. The good people are going to be with God. The bad people will not be there. And then, folks, you'll never visit a sick person. As a preacher, I try to do that when I can. I try to visit older folks who may be in nursing homes. I try to go see sick folks in the hospital. And even visit sick people who are at home, convalescing. Folks get sick because we live in a broken world. But the ill effects that we have to live with here in this sinful world will be reversed in heaven. Again, John says in Revelation 21, verse 4, "And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away." You familiar with that old song, "I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger"? I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, while traveling through this world of woe, yet there's no sickness, toil, nor danger in that bright land to which I go. And then, folks, you're never going to have to lock your doors. I guess there's probably still some folks out there that do not lock their doors, but I lock my doors. Because it seems that almost every night on the evening news, we hear about someone who was murdered or raped or robbed or beaten. And so we fasten our windows and we lock our doors. We secure our homes with home security systems. But folks, there's not going to be any bad news there. I realize that I'm dating myself because I refer to songs, popular songs that I grew up listening to. Any Anne Murray fans out there? Now, I realize that you young whippersnappers may have never heard of Anne Murray. But do you remember her single that was released in 1983, A Little Good News? She sang, "I rolled out this morning." Kids had the morning news show on. Bryant Gumbel was talking about the fighting in Lebanon. Some senator was squawking about the bad economy. It's going to get worse, you see. We need a change in policy. There's a local paper rolled up in a rubber band. One more sad story is one more than I can stand. Just once, how I'd like to see the headline say, "Not much to print today, can't find nothing bad to say," because nobody robbed a liquor store on the lower part of town. Nobody OD'd, nobody burned a single building down, nobody fired a shot in anger, nobody had to die in vain. We sure could use a little good news today. The doors in the New Jerusalem will have no deadbolts. The windows will have no locks. Those homes will have no burglar alarms. John writes in Revelation chapter 21 and verse 27, "But there shall by no means enter it anything that defiles or causes an abomination or a lie, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life." You see, the wedding feast that the Lord has prepared for His people is by invitation only, and nobody's going to crash that party. Jesus talked about that in Matthew chapter 22 when He said, beginning in verse 11, "But when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, 'Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, 'Bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen.'" And then you're never going to see an old person there. We daily witness the aging process in other people and in ourselves. But our skin wrinkles, our vision dims, our strength fails, our hearing goes, our hair turns gray, and then it falls out. But in that land beyond the sunset, there will be no retirement homes. There will be no assisted living facilities. There will be no nursing homes. Because there will be no old people. Well, I guess we'll be old, but we won't show it. I'm not sure that we appreciate as much as we should that our redemption will not be complete until our bodies are redeemed. Paul talks about that in Romans chapter 8, beginning in verse 18. He says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us, for the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pangs together until now. Not only that, but we also who have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. I'd been preaching a few years before it suddenly dawned on me, I'm going to have a new body. And it's going to be immortal and incorruptible and glorious and powerful. It's going to be like Jesus' resurrection body. And you know, we sing about that in our hymns as well. Are you familiar with the hymn, Immortally Arrayed? For soon my journey here must end. My earthly life must fade. Lord, grant that I might then ascend, immortally arrayed. I have heard of a land on a faraway strand. 'Tis a beautiful home of the soul, built by Jesus on high, where we never shall die. 'Tis a land where we never grow old. And the chorus, never grow old, never grow old. In a land where we'll never grow old. Never grow old. Never grow old. In a land where we'll never grow old. I sang that song for years. But it took on new meaning for me when I realized that my grandmas had gotten old. And my mama just had her 83rd birthday, May the 13th. And I'm going to be 63 in September. We'll never see an old person there. And folks, you'll never shed a tear. Hardly a week goes by, perhaps we could say hardly a day goes by, when there's not some sadness that is mixed in with our blessings. We face heartaches and sometimes heartbreaks far more frequently than we would choose. But John says in Revelation 21 verse 4, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. On Tuesday, February the 21st, 1984, at 12:24 a.m., a baby was born. At 1:32 a.m., this baby died. Thousands of babies die every day, but this was different. You see, this was my baby sister's baby boy. On Saturday, just before the graveside service for their son, Ryan Andrew Disselkamp, Robin and David tried to explain to Krista, their 2-year-old daughter, that Ryan would not be coming home to live with them because he was going to live with God in heaven. With tears streaming down their faces, they tried to explain that though they were sad because Ryan was not coming home to live with them, Ryan was happy. And so they were happy too. Suddenly, with a perception far beyond her years, Krista began to sing. No tears in heaven. No sorrows given. All with glory in that land. There'll be no sadness. All will be gladness when we shall join that happy band. David said so long ago, out of the mouth of babes and sucklings hast thou established strength. I just thought that you would like to hear this story, and I hope that you will be strengthened by it. It is here we must begin to seek the wisdom of the children and the graceful way of flowers in the wind. I was a John Denver fan. And I signed that little article, Uncle Kevin. And you're never going to go to work. Here in this life, we work for 30 or 40 years, and then we retire, and we find out that the honey-do list is so long that we're working harder now than we did before. Ain't that right, Rick? You're supposed to nod your head, yes, brother. I do know that ain't a word. But in that land there, we're going to enjoy rest, sweet rest. John writes in Revelation 14, verse 13, Then I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works follow them. If for the prize we have striven, after our labors are o'er, rest to our souls will be given on the eternal shore. And then finally, folks, you're never going to say goodbye. There are several goodbye scenes described for us in the Bible. One of the most poignant, I think, is found in Acts, the 20th chapter, when the Apostle Paul met with the elders from the church in Ephesus where he had labored for 3 years. And he met them in the port city of Miletus to bid them farewell, to say goodbye. And Luke tells us in the 37th verse, Then they all wept freely and fell on Paul's neck and kissed him, sorrowing most of all for the words which he spoke, that they would see his face no more, and they accompanied him to the shop. I suppose you've had your share of goodbyes, haven't you? You've said goodbye to loved ones who have passed on. You have said goodbye to friends Maybe you've said goodbye to brethren. I've had to say goodbye to a lot of good brethren that I love. When I have moved to work with another church in another area, I tell you what, folks, there's brothers and sisters that I wish that I could have just taken with me. Now, to be honest, there were some I didn't want to take with me. But folks, in that home of the soul, we're never going to have to say goodbye. Paul said in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, in verse 13, "But I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as others who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so God will bring with him those who sleep in Jesus. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who are asleep. For the Lord himself would descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore comfort one another with these words." One of my favorite hymns is the old hymn, "Beyond the Sunset." Beyond the sunset, oh glad reunion, with our dear loved ones who've gone before. In that fair homeland we'll know no parting, beyond the sunset, forevermore. In this life, it seems we're always saying goodbye. Anne Murray released another single with the title, "Somebody's Always Saying Goodbye." She sang railroad stations, midnight trains, lonely airports in the rain, and somebody stands there with tears in their eyes. It's the same old scene, time after time. That's the trouble with all mankind. Somebody's always saying goodbye. Taxi cabs leave in the night. Greyhound buses with red tail lights. Someone's leaving, and someone's left behind. Well, I don't know how things got that way, but every place you look these days, somebody's always saying goodbye. There'll be no goodbyes there. Do you remember that old Joe South song? I like songs, folks. Don't it make you want to go home now? Don't it make you want to go home? All God's children get weary when they roam. Don't it make you want to go home? Don't it make you want to go home? And let me tell you, you can do that, but only through Jesus. Jesus said in John 14:6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." If you've not made the decision to follow Jesus, you can go home through Him. His blood can wash all your sins away if you will respond to His invitation. Accept His gift of salvation with an obedient faith that submits to the waters of baptism for the remission of sins. If you're a Christian but you've not been living as a faithful Christian, will you come back to the Lord so that He can be your way home once again? If we can help anyone this morning, we would be delighted to do that. We stand ready to baptize anyone who needs to be baptized, that their sins might be forgiven. We stand ready to pray with and for anyone who needs our prayers, that they might be reconciled with God again. If we can help anyone this morning, we bid you respond to the gospel right now, without delay, as we stand and we sing.